And we're live. Rock and roll. Here we go. Let's see. What is going on this week? We got, I think Daniel and Paul are coming on in just a sec. Let me see if I can drop the link over to those guys. There we go. There's Daniel. We got a bunch of stuff that kind of went on that was all like basic stuff this week. Hang on, Daniel. Let me get you in here. Whoop. Not BFG Neo. But we'll get that rolling. Now we got your 5G news. Do you want to start with that?
5G news. Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm running this on Helium 5G. No, just kidding. I don't have that in Portugal. But I'm on my phone because...
Nice, dude.
Because I just moved to a new place and I don't have internet yet, so I'm just tethering everything. Having Helium 5G here would be pretty cool, definitely. Yes, so... I guess most people that follow at least Hotspotty know that we've been working pretty hard on like the Solana move to be able to track everything. I think Paul's going to be here later as well to talk about the ETL, which is quite some work to manage. And then there's like also managing that information from the oracles and then putting also into Hotspot and trying to build some useful information from that. Is my signal okay?
Yeah. Yeah, your sound cut out just a little bit, but overall looks pretty good. It's actually one of the better internet connections you've had.
Okay, yeah, man, it's been horrible. That's why I'm really happy to have finally a home again, to be able to actually have like connect fiber next week and then no more issues.
Yeah, that'll be rad.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, so one thing that we've done that's released, of course, it's the commission reports for mobile. Okay. So that's something that people have been talking about since the beginning of the Helium 5G, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was pretty hard because people were getting like rewarded into the mobile token, but nobody knew how much each cell was making, etc.
Yep. No, Keenan and I had that problem for sure. It was just like, go ahead.
Yeah. So now you'll be able to do that. We try to like make it as simple as possible and to like not go into much of the engineering things to make like all the details, configuration, etc. But you can do whatever you want now, and you can pay people in IoT, agency, and mobile. So that's something that we're quite excited to release. And one last thing that we really wanted to check out the box, right?
Yeah.
First was integration of the hotspot. Now you can see the rewards. And then one thing that actually Max actually deployed like a couple hours ago, it's like more precise information on the 5G cell. So for example, you go on Hotspotty, you click on the hotspot that has cells, you'll be able to really see all the information regarding the cells, the speed test, heartbeats, etc.
Nice.
But also if you go to your workspace into your hotspots, you're going to have a list of all the hotspots, and you're going to have the speed test showing there as well. You're going to have like the reward multiplier. So if you have like, let's say 30 or 10 hotspots that have 5G cells, you can see all of them at one spot. It's like not a massive update in this sense, but things that we've been talking to the community, and like I would just try to make things like you look at your dashboard, you can see all the speed tests for all the hotspots in one place. You don't need to go click one by one. We're working on doing like improving the email reports now. So like you get notified when if the hotspot goes offline or the speed test is underperforming or anything.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make the life easier for the deployers.
I love it. I've been kicking around on Hotspotty a little bit this week myself, just looking at various hotspots because I've got two. The one that we went and visited actually in the mountain is down. I've got to go get that thing fixed. And it's just cool to see that you guys are constantly updating things and making it better.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I'm very happy with the update. Now the website's much faster as well. The map thing, be able to load the whole thing. I think you probably remember like LA and like San Diego is like a very painful place to load.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was way too much data to process. Now it's super snappy.
It's a little bit easier. Cool. Let me grab Paul and bring him in here. I got to put my glasses on. I always get so self-conscious about glasses, but it's like if I put them on, I can see everything, and if I don't, it's super fucking hard.
It's okay, man. I'm with you.
Nice. Let's see if I can get Paul over here. There we go. I think that'll be a little bit better. Sweet. All right, let me see. There we go. Paul, what's going on, dog?
Hey,
How are you? Good to see you.
It's
good
early.
morning. Hey, good to see you too. Sorry, we're a
Yeah.
bit late today.
Yeah. No worries. Well, I got the dog starting to fire up here. Come here, Marv. Come on. Come on, you little rat. Ah, he's busy letting everybody know that the lawn people are outside. It's like, yeah, I know. Paul, what's going on, dude? We got a bunch of cool news at some point to announce, but you got your own set of news. That's pretty cool. What's going on with the ETL and IoT stuff and your whole world?
Doing good. I mean, releasing a lot of things. ETL, I have an ETL project. I don't know if lots of people follow that, but I did an open source ETL. But what I mean by ETL is basically ingesting the new POC format and new reward format that are off-chain information. Foundation is storing this information in file and AWS and S3, and so anyone can grab this information and process them. And so I made an open source solution for this. So it's now released and working. It's basically fulfilling the information for Watchium, and so yeah, you can fork this project, deploy it if you want. You just need a big server. It's something like 60. I mean, better to have 96 gigabyte of memory if you want to run it.
Okay.
And yeah, big stuff. And yeah, something like 16 cores is a beginning. Yeah,
Ooh,
with
as a beginning. I'll tell you what
yeah.
though, every time I talk to the foundation people, they're super impressed with both your guys' work. It's like I feel like if you two guys got hit by a bus, Helium would be fucked. So
No, no.
be careful.
What's good is, I mean, you can take the software and deploy it and make evolution on it if you want. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
So that's ETL, and I just racked the server this morning. So now it's in the data center also. It's good.
Cool.
Maybe I will use an API for that, but currently my server is a private use. Yeah, as I say, it's already a big server. So compared to Hotspotty that can deliver public services and this data, it's more. I provide some B2B, I would say, services for some people that want it, but it's more for my own usage.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting in terms of data analysis. We could, so I don't want to take all the time, but maybe we could also discuss, and maybe Daniel also should have some detail about this. But we have new indicator thanks to this data, which are interesting, particularly on the status of data only. So that's quite interesting.
And this was the
And
IoT
Yeah.
stuff, right?
yeah, on the IoT data. I don't know for the mobile. I did not investigate mobile. Maybe Daniel, you're also loading mobile data. I'm not doing this. Um, and the other news on my part is Chipstalk, and so the glue between Chipstalk and Helium is it really is basically the version we have is working well without SKF, so the session filter. And I'm working on finalizing the SKF as there has been an important evolution on Helium on this part recently, so I am finishing the adaptation of the code and should be really working tested. I mean, this weekend, and we are starting currently to deploy as a test the first OUI. So Nick, I will deploy beginning of the week. I think your chip stack instance for your UI. So we are starting on this, and if people have their own OUI, they can start testing the code which is available.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Pretty
man.
exciting news.
Congrats.
Right? So, Daniel,
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about this in our State of the Network kind of private channel, but Paul's going to be running, if I'm getting this right. So there's a Gris looking OUI that I bought, whatever, last summer. I was like, we got to be able
I
to do
remember.
something with this. Yeah. And Paul is now at the point where we can actually do something with it. And so there's going to be a GK OUI, and you can run your stuff on that. There'll be a kind of standard pricing on that. But yeah, I think we're going to
Yeah,
be
let's
doing
do
a bunch
it.
of cool stuff with it. Yeah.
I have a few sensors that I've been wanting to deploy, so I guess that's going to be the first. I can do that on that, and then I can give you guys any feedback that I have. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess, Paul, once you're done, I forgot there's one last thing that I wanted to announce as well. That's, I mean, small thing, but it's quite exciting.
Okay. Is that the
Um,
teaser?
okay, no, I'm just saying like if Paul has anything else he wants to finish up, and then
Yeah, yeah, go on, Daniel.
okay. I mean, because yeah, I guess that goes along with the whole Solana move, right? Because a lot of things has changed in terms of the off chain, the on chain data. Nobody better than Paul knows like how hard it is to work with that amount of data. Um, but one thing that we see a lot of people complaining is from like the makers that they were kind of slow to do the transition to the Solana ecosystem. There's a lot of like inconsistency in terms of okay, I onboarded my hotspot is not showing on the Explorer, my this and that, right? So
Yep.
one thing that we've been trying to do actually, we it's the code is done. It's probably gonna we're gonna push it, I think, in a couple hours. It's something that we call it like it's like a Solana follower. So as soon as anyone on board the hotspot that has a location, as soon as one reasserts the hotspot to a different location, we're gonna immediately follow that, and we're gonna trigger like a map update. So, for example, when you go to the explorer.helium.com, you have something called map tiles. It's like those big hexagons, right? And that thing needs to be pre-generated and cached. So we found ways to generate this quite quick, that like as soon as a hotspot gets onboarded, we're going to trigger an update. So we really want to try to solve this problem that everyone on the either Hotspot or on the Helium Explorer is going to have the latest information as it's on the blockchain. It's not very easy, but I just like we're just trying to find ways to like reduce the inconsistency and also like all these questions that people are having. We're having a lot of questions on our on Discord. I can imagine Helium Discord as well. People like I'm onboarded, but I don't see, etc.
Yeah.
Um, and one other thing is that it's good to know is that the hotspots that are on the Explorer are considered online hotspots or active hotspots. And what does an active hotspot is for us right now is a hotspot that has generated any reward in the past 7 days. So the lonely wolf may be considered as non-active until it starts generating some rewards or like data credits or something like that. That triggers the hotspot to be activated. So if your
Okay.
hotspot is not generating anything, then it's not going to be active on the map.
And I
Interesting.
mean, we have a really interesting information now is the unselected witness. And I mean, I found that really useful. I was talking about the data only, for example. Data only, I mean, if you have no data or just a bit of data, you should look at the reward, the activity only yesterday activity. So it's not efficient. But in fact, the data only also received witness, but they are unselected as they are data only. But you have this information. And so basically, the unselected witness are really interesting in terms of activity because you have tons all along the day, even for data only. And so yeah, it's really a good marker and a good signal to warn when a hotspot is going down. So yeah, quite interesting information you could investigate. This is what we are using on Watchium now, and yeah, really efficient to detect any anomaly.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. I mean, we were always trying to find the best ways. Like the first one that we did initially was like 24 hours rewards, and then 7 day rewards, and then we're going to continue improving until we get the optimal way. But yeah, it's just a lot of questions, a lot of testing. Everything is so new for everybody, so nobody knows exactly if I'm doing these things right or not.
Yep.
But we're going to get there like we did before.
And
And it,
what would be, I mean, on that topic, I know that I mean, what you've done with Solana is, I mean, really huge work, and that's really a mess to go on Solana and tracking the blockchain and so on. So really, congratulations for having doing this. I have to
Yeah.
investigate this now. Uh, but I would really appreciate the foundation to get a file with it because we are all developing complex stuff for accessing it. And yeah, we could have a file for with the synthesis of this with location, parameters, the NFTs and updates. That would be really great for us.
what would that
Yeah.
take, Paul? Is that just something like what that would take foundation building something?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, what Daniel has made, Hotspotty has made by listening on the blockchain, Solana blockchain, and getting the events of creation, update, and so on. Having this as a file, as we have the IoT token rewards, yeah, would be, I mean, really, really useful for all of us. So yeah, would be great to get this, because I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
when we were tracking Helium at the beginning, there was plenty of information, but all about Helium. And yeah, just the Helium information, the off chain information, it's 50 gigabyte a day to process. And but Solana is, I mean, you have Hive Mapper, you have Helium, you have plenty of projects. So the volume of data is really high. What you are interested in with Helium is really, really small in this. So you have to process, I don't know, terabyte per day, I would say, to extract something like, I don't know, 10 megabytes of interesting information a day. So yeah, filtering work, computation work, it's yeah, it's really
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge lift to what we've been doing. Like a small team focusing like really hard on building, because it's not only the Solana off chain data, like sorry, the Helium off chain is also the Solana data, and aggregating this like world of data and trying to build an API that makes sense. One thing that we're offering actually as a product is an API that englobes like the Solana off the Helium off chain, but also their own chain data. Like so, someone like there's a lot of small teams that have dashboard that they built in the past. They want to continue using that, so they can talk to us as well. Then we can have an API that can have everything. You can like list like wallets. You give a wallet list of hotspots. From those hotspots, you can have all the cells. The cells, you can have the rewards. You can have the speed test. So everything that you can see on Hotspotty in a very easy dashboard. You can also build stuff on that. Um, and yeah, it was a lot of work, and it wasn't very cheap to build the whole thing. So
No.
it's like hopefully
And
it brings some
are you
value.
going,
Yeah.
are you going to release? I mean, the country of the hotspot. In the Explorer, when you tip your hotspot name, you have the list for hotspot with the same name. And one of my main hotspots is existing in 3 different places. So you have the list with the 3 different names. You don't know where they are. Every time I click on the wrong one. They are not always in the same order. It's just impossible to find. So when are you fixing that?
That's a great idea. Yeah. Because we are every time there's a reassertion, we get the hex, and then we load the location address. It's similar to what we had before on the Helium, the ETL. Like you have like one table that means all the locations. We're still using the same table, but we are updating with the new locations. So it shouldn't be a. I mean, I think there's already that information from our API. When you look for a hotspot, it shows the address.
Yeah,
Technically, shouldn't be too hard to update that. Just put a little,
yeah,
just the country code, and with that, you can put the icon of the flag, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the country code would be good. I
That's
can give you a
interesting.
tip. What I did for the location of the hotspot, so I get some information from the previous ETL for all the hotspots that were existing, but also you always have the position of the beacon. When you take a look at the beacon data, you have the eggs of the beacon. So basically, you have the eggs of the hotspot, and so I'm enriching the hotspot location through the beacon. So if
Huh.
the hotspot has moved, the beacon will be moved, and so the next beacon you obtain the new position. It's the center of the eggs and not the exact position of the hotspot, but basically it's 300 meter, and we all know that most of people don't really locate exactly the hotspot where it is, so it's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tip if you you can investigate.
Yeah.
Works well.
All right. More work for you, Daniel. No big deal. You got like just put another couple hours in your day and you'd be good. You guys seeing this sidebar convo
Slacking.
in the chat? These people talking about the stolen bikes in Boston. Looks like Bobby got his bike stolen. Some totally pro bike thief is looking through it and they're figuring out some way to
Track back.
use helium for track back. I guess Bobby was saying that the guy was a pro bike thief, so stole the bike with a battery powered grinder, rode it off a couple miles, and then checked it for air tags, for like everything he could check it for to make sure that he couldn't be tracked. Yeah, so it's like,
So you know
bike
what's
thieves
up.
are pros. I mean, that's how I'd be stealing bikes, is making sure I did everything right. Like, why do a bad job? But
Yeah.
yeah, Interesting. Okay, and I guess we're seeing a lot of this, like the Hotspot showing inactive on one thing but active on another. This Caleb Joy Music is saying it's inactive on Hotspotty but active on Helium Geek. Is that something where I guess the two systems just aren't communicating between Hotspotty and Geek, but they're getting the information from somewhere, and there's just a time delay there?
Yeah, I mean the rewards are generated once per day now, right? At 1 a.m. UTC, and a lot of information goes around that. Depending exactly what is the algorithm or how you're defining what's an active hotspot and what's not.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No,
it's yeah. Sorry.
yeah, you're right. Previously, you had a active hotspot flag into the ETL database that was calculated by Helium or the ETL code, and basically you could have the same information on many different places. But now, I mean, this is not existing. So the definition we have in terms of active, yeah, for Daniel is rewarding in the last 7 days, which really means it's really active on the blockchain and participating to Beacon and Poke, for example. And for myself, I will consider that if the device is receiving data or witness, it's a working device. I don't really care about the rewarding. In fact, it's a consequence. So I will maybe consider that something is not active because it did not receive a witness for 3 hours, when usually it gets one witness every hours. So it's totally different way to do that, depending on what you are doing.
Yeah.
I say my philosophy for Watchum, for example, is really a tool for watching your hotspot and have a quick intervention in case of problem. So I prefer to have an information saying that you're offline to check your internet connection and so on before too long time. When for Hotspotty can be a different objective and different indicator.
Yeah. I mean, back in the early days, I used to just put an LHT65, like a little device, with every one of my hotspots. I just throw it in the box, and that thing is be passing data every hour. It sounds like we're kind of coming full circle, and that would let me know, like, if I didn't get it, within 2 or 3 hours, because they'll miss stuff. It was like, oh well, the hotspot's probably down, and that was way faster than anything else that was on Helium. And it sounds like, Daniel, that's kind of one of the ways that you're thinking of having people do it now.
Yeah,
which is, at least for off grids, it's interesting.
This is what I'm doing with Wire Monitor project. It's a wire device connected with a LoRa 5 LoRa module.
Okay.
And so it basically connecting on Wi-Fi, testing if your internet connection is okay, testing if your hotspot is also responding to ping, and testing a LoRaWAN connection. And if everything goes well, it's great. But if you have a problem, the LoRaWAN message will be relayed by one of the neighborhood, and you get the information that the hotspot is not working, and if the reason is your internet connection or local connection, for example. So that's worked pretty well for alarming.
Interesting. And the other thing that I wanted for my hotspots, for the off-grid ones, was a way to power cycle them, and I think there's a way to like tie all that in where you have a LoRaWAN relay. So that's the thing that's telling you, like, yeah, it's still alive, and it's basically connected to either the same battery or a separate battery, depending on how kind of backed up you want to get. But then you can use that to say, like, yeah, I'm getting signals from my relay, and then if I don't get the signal from the hotspot, or it doesn't get passed through, I can power cycle it. I think that makes sense. But yeah, it's just one of those things that's like, I don't have time to do that. Dude, I don't know if you guys saw, I'm building this reflow oven out of a toaster. Like, that's my current project for this Helium Bridge thing, because Dirk and I are working on this device that allows you to move signals from, what is it, Dirk? It's like RTL33. It's like a bunch of weird radio protocols, ANT plus and LoRa, not LoRaWAN, onto Helium. And as part of that, as he's designing the boards, he's like, dude, some of this soldering is too fine. Like, we need to have a reflow oven. So he found this thing where you can buy a toaster online, buy a kit, and then build this thing. It's super, super fun.
Man, that's so cool. Yeah. I love reflow ovens. They're so much fun to see them like soldering things and melting.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss electronics. Yeah.
Well, at some point when your workload is less, then come on over and we'll do some fun stuff. I don't know how to say this name. Jan Brunchal. Super chat. Thanks, Doug. He's asking, so, or she, I'm not sure, is asking how to add new Bobcat miners to Hotspot. The Bobber app's not working. So I think this is a really common question overall with all hotspots. So Daniel, if you want to hit that again, and we talk about maybe some of the problems the manufacturers are having across the board, whether it's Bobcat specifically or others, and then how Hotspotty helps out with that.
Yeah, I mean, we have something called Hotspot Connect, which is like a mobile app for Android and iOS that you can track your wallet, you can track all your hotspots. The app is free. You can do the grand diagnostics, but we try to build some partnership with some makers. For example, Rack is a big one, and Panther as well.
Yep.
That we work together with those makers to allow them to have the best experience. There's a lot of things to improve, but there's a lot of things to improve all fronts with everybody, right? Like
Yeah.
we work very closely with the Nova team. We work very closely with the foundation team. We are also tracking out the issues they're having. We can see like when people complain about something that's happening, we can try to figure out how can we make it better. And so if any maker out there is having problem with that in terms of bandwidth, in terms of trying to figure out how to do things, they can talk to us, and then we can also integrate the maker inside of Hotspot Connect. So you should just check it out. And like it's a pretty neat app. We've
Yep.
been developing that for quite some time now.
And do you guys have an integration with Bobcat yet? Can you help this guy get his hotspot on board? I haven't paid attention. Although, funnily enough, a client of mine, it said this is like 2 years ago. We did a whole Helium consultation thing. He was super psyched on it, and then kind of lost interest. And he had, I don't know, 5 or 6 Bobcats and a Freedom Fi hanging around. He emails me and he's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna take these to Goodwill and throw them in the trash. Like, do you want them?" And at first, like, I don't know what I could do with extra hotspots. And then once he said he's gonna throw them away, I was like, "Well, just send them to me. I'll figure something out." So now I've got 4 or 5 Bobcats I got to figure out something to do with, and I got at least a cool project for one of them.
Yeah, I mean, if it was some other device that was running on a Raspberry Pi, it was easier to just like purpose to something else, right? If you
Yeah.
don't want to be a Helium hotspot.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we tried to close some deal with Bobcat, but that didn't work out. So in that sense, there's not much we can do. We're open to talking to them if they want to.
Yeah.
Just let them know that we are open.
Okay.
Always willing to help.
Yeah. You guys have been super good about that. Let's see this traffic monitoring sensor. So this is like a standard sensor question. Like, can you sense this thing using Helium? And Paul, this is actually something I'm really excited to do with the new GK chirp stack when we get that thing rolling. Is I've got a ton of sensors on the desk behind me. And for a while, I was just too swamped to add them. And then I got to this point where I was like, dude, I don't want to add them to Helium console and then switch them over to chirp stack. I feel like that's extra pain in the ass work. So I'll just wait until we've got this thing up. But my feeling for that is it's actually going to be a little bit easier to add sensors to chirp stack just because we don't have some of the same restrictions as console. Is that right, or am I missing something?
I mean, waiting for going to chip stock is not something mandatory. As we have made a wizard. I mean, I developed a wizard for the migration, so it's going to be quite straightforward for the migration. But what is important is staying in the same UI. So what I mean is, if you go to console.helium.com, currently I don't know what is going to be the future for this one. So maybe you will have no chip stack migration possible on that one. I don't say you're not gonna have.
Yeah.
I say we don't know. Okay,
Right.
There's a difference. Okay, for sure we're gonna have communication on this soon, but I don't know. Or I cannot say what I know.
Yeah.
But for example, if you go to for GK, you're gonna directly have chip stack, so you can go there. But if you go to my console, which is console.helium-io.eu, this one will be migrated to chip stack. So it means that if you deploy the device on that one, you will be able to use the migration path to move your device, and you won't have to change to reset your device, to rejoin, or anything like this. We have tested it, and we will share a demo of this soon also. But we have the demo where you take your device, which is in Helium, you apply the wizard of migration, and your data just changing to the chip stack in a few seconds. And and nothing else to do on the device. You can get a feel. So that works really well.
Super.
Yeah. So no need to keep it on the table. You can deploy it on a console if you want. Just make sure that this console will be migrated to chip stock and won't be just stopped at the end.
Okay. Now we can kind of figure that out later, but yeah, because I'm not sure I'm on the whatever the VIP console thing. I'm not sure if that's an extra obstacle because that has worked really well in some cases, and in some cases it's been a little bit more challenging. But yeah, we'll figure that out because I got a bunch of devices that are currently on there. So back to the traffic monitoring thing, I was just waiting like, oh, once we get this chirp stack off, I'll just put stuff straight on there. But to answer the question, like, yeah, you can totally monitor traffic on the Tijuana San Diego border. That's a pretty big deal. I'm probably gonna have to get some permission for that. But yeah, I think the other thing that we've seen, and this was just kind of a neat little sidebar, was in front of Paleo Treats, in front of this little cookie company, a long time ago, a while ago, Lee got both of our parking spots in front of us painted green. And in the US, a green parking strip means that you can only park there for 15 minutes. So it's really good for our business because instead of having cars parked there all day and not letting customers come in, there's a constant flow of customers that come in, and customers had said like, oh, this is much easier. Thank you guys for making this happen. So it's like standard business stuff is making it easier for customers to buy. The other day, and every so often we'll have cars parked there for, instead of 15 minutes, 30 minutes or 2 hours, or I think yesterday it was like 8 hours. We had some crackhead fucking park there. And so I was like, oh, I wonder what we can do with putting parking sensors on the pavement and then connecting them up to some kind of automation that lets us know like, hey, that car's been parked there for an hour. And then you can go and report it in through the standard kind of municipal app that says, hey, this car's been parked there too long. I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff where it's not just governments doing it. It's private enterprise saying, hey, this is important to my business. How do I do this?
What I see, it was a big topic at the previous Lower One conference, as
Mm-hmm.
the topic was smart cities. And so there is a lot of experimentation around parking payment and Lower One. Really interesting. And what I retain was really interesting in a point of view is that thanks to this, they are going to variable pricing. What I mean, in fact, the price of the parking depends of the saturation. So if you're first
Oh,
arriving
yeah.
in parking, for example, it's quite free because there is plenty of places in that parking. But
Yep.
if you take the last 10 places, it become really expensive. So it's a way to regulate, in fact, the number of car in a city. But if you are in a private parking, you can have some dynamic pricing to attract people, and then when the places are rare, you can sell it at a higher price. So really, really interesting. And this can be automatically managed once you have the sensor and the number of plays that are available. You can totally dynamically generate this price.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. I did see like a bunch of. Remember that? I don't know if you guys remember this when I went over to was it Lisbon? No, it was Barcelona at that whatever that World Cities Expo thing. We actually talked to a guy who was out of San Francisco who had parking sensors, and he was like, "Yeah, I would totally use LoRaWAN, but there's no LoRaWAN in my city." And I was like, "What city?" He's like, "Oh, San Francisco." I was like, "Oh, have you heard of Helium?" So it's funny to think like folks are doing this, and we're going to see all of these kind of cases enabled. Like the really one of the advantages right now is that the better your imagination is, like the more opportunity that you're able to see. And so it's thinking like, how do I use these sensors to do whatever it is? So yeah, I like the rate change. And Michael Batters is saying they do that in South Beach, Miami. That's pretty interesting.
yeah. What is interesting on all of this is that the ecosystem of LoRaWAN is mature, is start to be old. I mean, something like 5, 7 years of device development. And so on the market, you have tens of devices. So parking place, don't develop your own sensor. I think there is at least 3 or 5 different provider of sensors for detecting cars.
Yeah.
Very well done device. And basically, what you have to focus on is developing the service, creating the application for including different business model and so on, and do something creative. For example, you can make something that there to count if space are free or not to route people to the right path of parking. It can be a level of service, but creating dynamic trade is also a new level of service you can create, and you have plenty of possible offering
Yeah.
to different competitor. And I mean, it's not a hardware question, it's not a network question. Everything is there. It's now a question of be innovative, efficient in providing a service solution, and it's open to many. I mean, any developers can work on that domain.
Yeah. Daniel, are you guys thinking, I mean, I know you've had like a ton of, basically you had to do all this work in order to keep both Hotspotty and Helium alive, right? Like there's like this chunk of work that you had to do over the past, Jesus, 6 months. It was like, hey, in order for Helium to continue on and for Hotspotty to keep going, like I've got to do this work. But it wasn't directly, as far as I can tell, like income generating. It was just like, dude, like we got to keep the heart pumping before we can send the body out to go like shovel dirt and make money or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now that
Yeah,
you're mostly
exactly.
through that, like what are you thinking is kind of coming next down the pipe for Hotspot? I'd love to kind of brainstorm a little bit while we got Paul on in public.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're thinking, we're exploring. Am I cutting?
A little bit,
Just
yeah, but
checking if you can.
I'm
Sorry.
getting most of it. I'm getting most
Yeah,
of it. Yeah.
yeah. Next week's gonna be better. Um, I mean, there are a lot of things they're exploring as well. One of the things is that the deep in space is not only helium, right? There's a lot of extra things, a lot of extra projects that are very interesting. So Hotspotty, like we will try to do like whatever we did for helium to also expand to other projects that we believe are interesting and bring value to the community and like to the whole society if you want to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we're in talks with all the different projects, like different even in different markets like Demo. That's one that I think is very interesting. We're talking to them to like, okay, does it make sense to build some sort of like fleet management for Demo devices instead of like just only hotspots?
Right.
We're exploring like the goal that we want to do, that we're going to do a big push soon, is to become the core center of the DePIN state, the DePIN like ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, we're very focused on Helium. There was like you said, this massive work just to maintain the website working, right? Uh, to in a way, it was good because that made us focus and also update some things that's been long overdue, like
Yeah.
the website speed, etc.
Yep.
And yeah, we want to try to analyze what are the things that we can work in other fronts to actually help and ultimately help the whole DPN ecosystem grow. We're working with other partners, we're working on other projects. Like there a company like IoT that's like very big on DPN as well. They're doing like the many different events. But yeah, it was very like exciting and very tiring, the lift for Hotspot to become on Solana, because like you said, it's like it's so much work just to keep whatever we have working.
Yeah.
There was like Patreon, for example. Remember, he was the first fleet management for Helium
Yep.
back in 2020,
That was Russ, right?
and
Russ
then
or Russ? Yeah.
yeah, Ross,
Yeah.
Ross, I think, and he just threw the towel because it's actually
Too
it's a
much.
lot of work and it's expensive, because before in the beginning, when the Helium had only like, let's say, 4,000 hotspots, you could use the public API to build everything. um, I remember Max, he destroyed the Helium API when he was building Hotspot the first time before we had the backend, because he was just smashing the API.
Yeah.
And then, okay, to have Hotspot open, he did like 50 megabytes of requests, and there was no, so he kind of triggered like the team to do rate limiting on the API, because we're just building on top of that's what was available.
Fucking
And
Max.
then yeah, and then after that, I started syncing the ETL from scratch.
Right.
Like that, I have a little like accomplishment certificate that they sync the hotspots from the Helium blockchain from block one. But yeah, that, so as it grew, like I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, so there is no more public API to build things, so we have to build
Yeah.
much more infrastructure. I mean, we had already built quite an infrastructure for managing like all the deals that we had, especially in 2021.
Yep.
That was like a crazy amount of people, and then, but yeah, we had to rewrite like most of it for
Everything.
the
Yeah.
back end.
I mean, Helium is signaling that they think that the Solana transition is over. They basically closed the Solana transition channel on the Discord server. They're like, yeah, you guys I mean, they're not doing it in a bad way, but they're just like, yeah, the transition is pretty much done. We're no longer kind of fielding those questions. If you got questions, here's the two places to go. So what we're seeing now is like the horizon kind of opened back up. But for you, it's it's probably
Yeah.
just way more work.
Yeah, I
I
mean, it's
as
cool.
the
Like sorry,
no, as soon as the
like
Helium blockchain is done, Solana migration is made.
Yeah, yeah. Paul, are you thinking about doing DePIN stuff as well, or are you going to stick to just running LoRaWinds and kind of doing the chirp stack and staying within that lane?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want. I mean, I'm on different project as a user and interesting and yeah, like Hive Mapper, Deepin. I didn't take a lot of look at Deepin, but it's I think quite interesting. I have to take more deeper on this.
Yeah,
Demo also is quite interesting for it. So I mean, I'm more a new user on this one. I don't want to develop a lot of things on this project because I don't have the time for this, and
right.
I want to focus on doing things on Helium and doing working things.
Yeah,
On Helium, I will look at. I mean, I'm really impatient to see what we're gonna have with Wi-Fi. I mean, for me, it's the next big thing on Helium. So I'm really waiting for this. Maybe I will do better thing on this one.
got it.
But yeah, I prefer to focus on making do working what I'm working on and not try too many different things in parallel.
Cool. So we're seeing like two different approaches, right? Is that Paul, you're kind of staying in the lane of what you know and like, hey, I'm going to get this thing working really well. And on Daniel's side, it's like, oh no, there's this giant ecosystem emerging. I'm going to make sure that I kind of hit as many different parts of it as I can and see what works. And I think both of those are super good ways to do it. It's neat to see you guys kind of building in public a little bit.
Which is, I mean,
yeah,
the main difference in my point of view. Yeah, Hotspotty is a company with many people and looking for growing in that ecosystem. So really interesting to develop different things. I'm basically alone, and so I have to focus on one thing. Maybe I will develop myself, duplicate myself if some business is rising on what I'm doing currently. But yeah, what is important is that the user of my service have something stable, and I cannot be on too many things, even if I'm already on different too many
Yeah.
things.
yeah.
So one thing that came down the pipe this week that I saw in the announcements was that the Helium grants opened back up. There's a lady I hadn't seen before, Brandy, and maybe I just haven't seen her, but I was like, oh, they're like Helium Foundation is adding more and more people, and I know they're adding more people. I'm just not sure if she's super new, but she'd put this announcement in the Discord saying the grants are open. Are either of you guys going to pursue a grant basically to help grow your business, or is that something that you're not not interested in or unknown?
Um, yeah, no, yeah. It depends a lot because like even though we try to have to build a lot of things, we try not to do a lot of things open source.
Yep.
Uh, like for example, we had Agent Scan, which was a grant in the past, and then of course didn't make sense to continue developing because that was like a massive work to push that.
Yep.
But because I mean, even though we try to do a lot of things that for the community, we still need to pay the bills at the end of the
Yeah.
month. So we
Totally.
try to have things open source, right? And that's one of the requirements for the usually for the grants. Um, so it makes things a little bit harder for us to build
Yeah, yeah,
on top
makes it
of.
much harder for you. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder if they're going to change the requirements for that because what you guys are doing is so important, and both of you guys have the skill set to really advance Helium. Um, yeah, I wonder
Yeah,
if they'll make
and
exceptions for that and say like, "Hey, look, what you guys are doing is awesome. It's critical. Fine, you want to keep some of it. Cool."
I think that
yeah,
there
I
is
mean,
one way to do that. For example, I mean, I get a grant for the Helium chip stack stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it was I mean, I did not do it by getting a grant, but I did it, and after they tell me, ah, you should apply for a grant, so I did
Yeah.
it, and I got
Yep.
it. And
definitely.
in terms of licensing, it's open source natively, so there's no problem with open source. But even what I wouldn't want is, I mean, to have someone competing in front of me with my software and doing unfair competition. What I
Yeah.
mean is that, I'm selling one DC for a price of five DCs
Yep.
because there is a server to run, time to
Yeah. Yeah.
monitor
Totally.
the run, so it makes sense. But anyone can arrive. He have a server on his room. He load it on a server and consider that he can sell it for two DCs for one. because you don't have to develop, you did not invest
Yeah.
in a big server and so on, and it's an unfair competition basically.
Yep.
So as I don't want this, it's open source if you are in a user case which is not in competition with myself. So if you are your own fleet and you want to support your own fleet, you can use the software. It's fully open source.
Yep.
If you want to make a public service and you invoiced it 10 DCs for 1 DCs to your customer, you can do it. You are not in competition with me. But if you want to do it at a lower price or equivalent price, basically you have to purchase a license. So
Yep.
the code is open source. You can modify it and so on. But in terms of usage, if it's for making a business which is in competition with my business, you have to purchase a license. It's not a classical open source. And
Yeah.
I think it's a good deal in a such situation. I'd say we are doing open source for the community usage. It's totally open source. But if you do business, just make sure that if you are in a competition, I will get some part of the revenue.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how we're doing it,
Yeah.
right, Paul? Is that it's like we're at the 10 DC price to resell, and then if GK does stuff internally, it's at whatever the price is plus the whatever monthly fee. I think that's how I've got it. We're talking about. So
And
yeah,
what is
Yeah, that's pretty
important
good.
is this, I mean, 5 DCs per DCs or 10 DCs per DCs, I mean, it's just low cost at the end compared to the kind of public offer you're going to have with a public operator. Because, I mean, if your device is sending one message a day, or 10 message a day, don't care. It's something 10 message a day is 3,000 device a year. So if you go to 10 DCs, it should be something like, not sure if it's $3 or $0.3 a year or
right,
something like
super
this.
cheap. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
just
Yeah.
you could
not
spend that and buy a cup of coffee, and you'd still be totally fine.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it's so hard. I mean, I think one of the like massive pain point that we have at Hotspot is just the token price of Helium.
yeah,
It's not as people would expect, so that makes it much harder for people to justify the cost. Even though, like you said, it's just like 1 or 2 cups of coffee per month. So once people like, if you really want companies like this night want to keep on building Hotspot, keep on building, spending like $5 a month makes a big difference for us, and sometimes like doesn't make that massive difference for you. So a
yeah.
lot
Yeah,
of
but
people complain to us like things should be free, but like
No,
they
no, like
don't
I
have no
yeah,
idea the lifts.
here we are talking about usage. I mean, we had this discussion about the bike that has been stolen. The question is, you have a bike which is 2,000. You pay 2,000, and you can add a tracker on it. The tracker is something like $50, okay, and you want to track it when it's stolen. Okay, you can pay $3 a year for this security. I mean, it's not in relation with token price. It's not in relation with helium economy. It,
yeah,
it just you have a service which is the ability to retrieve your 2,000 bucks bike, and this costs you $3 a year. You,
yeah.
you
No,
can
it
you
seems
can buy an insurance if you go to an insurance and say, okay, I want to have an insurance in case of my bike is stolen. They will say, okay, no problem. How much is your bike? It's 2,000. Okay, so you're gonna pay $100 a month for this, and
yeah,
for sure you will have this insurance. So yeah, the value is that one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Ripping. Let's see. What else have I got? I think we still got. Yeah. If you, I keep forgetting to say this. If you haven't hit the thumbs up or like button, hit it now. Do me a favor there. It's always good to have that stuff on there. I think we're doing a pretty good job. I'm looking at the stats right now, and we got almost as many people watching as we got thumbs up. So good job. Thank you guys. What else? We talked about the Helium grants. This is like some smaller stuff. Is the HNT Pyth Price Oracle integration is for HNT now. That is basically the short version. Is that price part is automated. It's not automated for IoT or mobile. That's still happening as far as I can tell manually. But it's just like a step in the direction of making this whole thing a little bit more decentralized, a little bit more automated, a little bit more frictionless for folks to be working in it. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Like, we're gonna start using that as a source of truth.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, because the price can change depending where you're looking, right? Like
Yep.
even like all the Bitcoin price can have different price in different exchanges. So there's not one source of truth. So if everybody tried to do that, I think it's a good thing.
And then Joey had told us to drop this dc-portal.helium.com. I think it's in the description. He said that was going live, and that should be live sometime during the show or maybe by the end of it. If you guys want to, watching, want to check that. It's dc-portal.helium.com.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Soon.
Okay. Soon come. By the time someone rewatches this, it should be on there. And then the other piece of news that I've got, I just saw Max jump on with DePIN State, as we've been doing all these DePIN State interviews, and Daniel and Paul, got to get you guys on that one as well. It's a little 15-minute blast into kind of what's new with you. And definitely, Paul, when we do the GKOUI, we'll hit that thing. But we're dropping the GEODNET one right after this. So there should be a link in the description on this YouTube. You can go check that one out. And that's 15 minutes with Mike Horton. And we're talking about the staking stuff, which, Paul, is also applicable to you, because it looks like that someone will stake France. And for the broad overview of this is that when you stake an area, you put up your money for that, and then the rewards for miners deployed in that area increase. And the idea was that the system kind of signals itself where it wants deployment, versus Helium, where it's like, oh, well, you just put it in a new place, and if you put a couple in a new place, you're good. But that new place might not be good at all. It might be some remote village where no one cares about it, or it's like a total bullshit gaming thing.
Yeah, in fact, you have services like I think it's Hotspot RF, who is evaluating for a given place the revenue you can expect. So basically, you can simulate this, and Hotspot RF is doing a radio simulation and looking at the reward around all that stuff to computation for this. So you have service for this
Yeah. So this will, it won't predict what the reward will be. It'll increase it. So if you stake, in this case, I think it's 50,000 geodes is what it's at right now, 50,000 of the tokens. If I stake that against, like, wherever you are in France, Paula, right next to you, if you haven't deployed a GeoDNet miner there, the reward for deploying a GeoDNet miner starts to go up. I think on day 1 it's like 2x, and then on day 15 it's 3x, and on day 30 it's 4x. Like, it just keeps going up until it gets to 20x, or someone deploys a miner. And so you can have these places where, like, there starts to be incredible pressure to deploy there, which is, it's a cool thing that they would come up with when we talk about it. So
I have a GeoDNet device deployed and working well, but need to use it now. And
yeah. I've been watching a couple of these people use it. It's not at the point where it's super easy yet, but it's getting there, and that team is doing pretty good. Oh, Max is asking, like, what do you think is the best metric to use for a best witness? As he's asking you that, Paul.
Yeah, I see that. I don't know exactly what means best witness. So yeah, I'm not sure what the answer. I don't know if
the best.
you can.
Maybe it's an anti-gaming thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
would be my guess if it's a Max thing. 619 is saying he's interested in grants a year ago, not anymore. Yeah, I think here's the thing: is that the grants a year ago were pretty good, but were kind of hit and miss. I know a lot of people applied for them and didn't get them, and it wasn't as well explained as they wanted it to be. But I think with this kind of relaunch of it, if you've got something that will benefit the Helium community and you should totally consider putting one in.
I think there is plenty of things to do in device deployment and things like this where you can I think get grants.
Yeah.
I mean, the market is full of devices. I mean, let's take the example of TrackPack. It's a good example of this. The market is full of tracking devices, but user needs service. I mean, buying a device, doing the configuration, building your own application for using it, and so on. Yeah, that's not accessible. That's not scalable. So what is interesting is purchasing an existing device through an application or through a service like TrackPack is doing, and you have the full services. So for TrackPack, it's tracking. So yeah, you can do this. But there's plenty of things to do on this, like on a smart building, smart home for monitoring temperature, air quality, open door security, parking place. Tons and tons of things to do. And so I think grant is a good kickoff for this. I mean, you with a grant you can buy 100 of device. You can pay a bit of your development and so on, and you can make a POC. So you can find your first customer. We have a big community in Helium, so potentially, if you do smart home, you can find a lot of customers through the community, and you can start doing something. So there is a lot of place for this, in my point of view. Even if it's side project, you can try.
And it de-risks it a little bit for you. I think that's what that's what I did with the people counter. Is I used the grant money to buy the devices, which I wouldn't have been able to buy, 10 or 11 devices, whatever it was I bought anyway, and kind of take that risk. And it turned out that in that case, that was super good that they helped out with that risk, because that project went totally sideways. So it's you got to think about, like, how do you set up the risk to yourself and to the foundation, and then provide value to the community and eventually win. So, Max is saying it's about hip 83. Of course, Max was talking about his hip. I haven't looked at that stuff. Let's see. Have I got anything else? No, we talked about the Hotspotty 5G. We talked about the grants. Talked about issues with Hotspot. I think we hit everything that there was to hit. So, ripping, guys. You want to wrap this one up? Anything else before we go? Before you guys check in with you guys next week?
Yeah,
sure.
I'm gonna probably remember once you close the
Yeah,
chat.
as soon as we hang up, it's like, oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this one thing. Yeah, that's how it goes. Cool. Well, we'll wrap it now. We got 5 minutes left. So for folks watching, check out DePIN State. If you don't see the link in the description, I think it's there. Just go find at DePIN State on YouTube and watch that GEODNet. There's some pretty cool stuff that's getting announced there. So I think with that, we will wrap it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Lates.